Hello and welcome to episode 94, where we're going to have a look at the AKG C1000, the world's most hated microphone. Now, we're all guilty of having our favourites and we promote them to everybody if we possibly can. But AKG seemed to collect sort of totally negative comments. There were, of course, a few people who loved the C1000. They were bought by schools, colleges, universities, and sort of a few enthusiasts. But the remarks in the press at the time were almost 100% negative. And it even sort of spurned a range of jokes along the lines of, what's the best thing you can do with an AKG C1000? Well, use it as a hammer was quite a common one. Did it deserve these? Well, to be honest, no, it didn't. It was just an odd microphone for the time. And it was a peculiar shape. It had the rather nice, I thought, idea that not only could it run on 48 volt phantom power, but you could unscrew it and you could stick a 9 volt battery inside it, the old little square one with the two things on the end. So you could buy a couple of those, bung a couple of batteries in, and you didn't have to worry about phantom. You could go and record things in stereo. You could, if you wanted to, sing into them. And schools and colleges bought them. They loved them for the newly emerging music technology. And all in all, they did a pretty good job. But they just had this terrible reputation. And I can't seem to find any evidence that it was anything other than just sort of preference and people just didn't like them. They're a fairly standard looking microphone, really, if you look at them closely. So we've got typical looking thing. The only weird thing is it has got this sort of very strange cross section at the end. So it's not a circular mic, it's a circular mic with a flat chunk on it, which is a bit odd. Now, this one is the S version, so if you like, it's the Mark II. And the real difference was that the Mark II version, instead of having the facility for a 9 volt battery inside, which are now getting hard to get, these particular ones will take a couple of AA batteries, one in this side, one in that side, and away you go. The little electric mic capsule at the end is on a really soft rubber mount, so it's pretty good for sort of noises on the stand. Inside the compartment as well, there are a couple of little sort of switches. There's a 10 dB pad, and on the other side is a bass roll-off, so fairly standard for the type of microphone, but rather nice. If you look at some of the adverts, it says it's switchable hyper-cardioid and cardioid. It's not. This microphone is cardioid. Inside the microphone, when you got them new, was a little tiny piece of black plastic. And you shoved it on top of that. So the little piece of black plastic would cover the top end of the cardioid element. And it converted it into a hyper-cardioid pattern, which is rather neat. The problem was most people thought that piece of black plastic was packing or something like that, couldn't work out where it went, never bothered to read the instructions, and they either lost it or threw it away. You can buy them, and they're about £12 or so, but £12 for a piece of plastic is a bit of not many people buy them, I'm told. Once you've got the thing like that, with or without your hypercardioid converter, you can screw the thing back together. If you want to, you could use the little foam windshield it came with, plonk that on the top. It works as a vocal microphone. Nowadays, I see them quite often used as drum overheads because they're quite a bright microphone. But for some strange reason, everybody seemed to hate them. So let's have a look and see if we can put this up against our SM7B. Okay, so we've got the C1000 up against our SM7B. So let's go to the C1000 and we'll flip between the two just so you can sort of get your ear tuned into the differences. Well, the weird thing about it is that it's a small electric condenser microphone. And when that was introduced in the 90s, that was quite a new thing, a modestly priced condenser. Schools and colleges were the sort of intro for these things, and I think that's where C1000s really sort of earned their sort of reputation. I suspect it could well have just been older people that were using them had been experienced with typical dynamic microphones and liked that sort of classic warm sound, and then were faced with that more hard sound that these C1000s produced. By today's standards, it's quite a normal sounding microphone, and really, I don't think it deserved the bad reputation that it got. People just bought them and then said they didn't like them, yet it's been in production for an awful long time, and AKG have clearly sold enough to make production still working today. It is a bit odd that something so hated has always been popular. I mean, it's a sort of mixed emotion, isn't it? It's fashionable to say, oh, C1000s, they're dreadful. But are they? Clearly, they're not. They're a pleasant enough sounding, bright condenser mic. And certainly when you see people use them on drum overheads or, as I've seen just recently, on a snare drum, it actually did pretty well. It's that bright, clicky sound that maybe we should experiment with a bit more. I don't know. I have to say that I don't use it very often, but I wonder if that's just conditioning. I mean, I was around when we started using those in schools in the 90s, and people were sort of discovering microphones could be bright and clear, and maybe that's where this sort of hard sounding sort of description got tagged onto them. But for whatever reason, they were just not liked particularly much, which is a great shame. There we go. You've now had a chance to hear a C1000 up against the SM7B. We've been flipping about between the two, and one sounds like a warm dynamic and the other sounds like a bright condenser. I can think of loads of things you could record with this with no problems whatsoever. And with the 10 dB pad, you can use them on quiet or loud things. And the little rubber suspension on that capsule is pretty good at keeping stand noises and handling noises away from it. So all in all, it's a sort of an all-round winner that for some reason is just not fashionable. So in the past, I've been guilty at saying how horrible these things are. And really, they don't deserve that. AKG C1000. Oh, one little thing. It does have an on-off switch on the side, which is not obvious when it's off. The number of times you'll see people sort of put one of these things out and they don't notice the switch has got knocked when they've been squashing it into the wrong clamp. Like I am here, I'm using a Sennheiser clamp to hold it because I can't find the C1000 one, it's long gone. And it's just a weird size, so it's actually been jammed into a Sennheiser radio mic clip for this, what I'm doing today. And while I was doing that, I accidentally switched it off. So just remember that there is an on-off switch on the side and it's not obvious whether it's on or off from the distance. You have to physically just push it and see if it moves. There we go. AKG C1000, the S version. Like it or love it, it's lasted for 30 years, so that's not bad, is it? Take care. I'll see you on the next video.